Good evening everyone. It's been a long time since we had a new opening. So I think the last opening was Queen's Gambit declined and accepted. So this is Queen's Pawn opening which is known as the Bogo Indian defense. So white starts with the move d4. Knight f6, c4, e6, and after the move knight c3, many players like to avoid this move by immediate pinning the knight to this diagonal. The knight is pinned, and this is also known as a Bogo Indian, but we are not going to discuss this opening today. Instead of the move knight c3, which allows us to make an early pin with the move bishop to b4, many players choose to play the move knight f3. Well, this is our opening known as the Bogo Indian, which starts with the move bishop to b4 check, which is also known as the Nimzowitsch variation of the Bogo Indian. Okay, as you can see that this is a check, so white has to block. Knight c3 is not, if opponent plays knight c3, then this is d5. You should play like this, attacking in the center. But our trapeze line starts with the move, our theory starts with the move bishop to d2, and the Nimzowitsch variation starts with the move queen to e7. We are defending our bishop, and note that taking this bishop is not good because of queen takes bishop, and we are attacking not only this and these two attack, and if queen here, then we simply grab our pawn with queen takes c4. So that's why taking is not an option. So there are two choices that white has in this position. The move g3, which is also known as a Catalan, and the second is to play the move knight c3. We are going to analyze each by turn. Okay, after the move knight c3, this is an engine recommended move, knight to c6, and after then we can play after the move, let's say g3, and after g3 and white castles, and after bishop to here, we could take and put our knight on the, this is a central square. This square is currently weak, and we would like to occupy in this square. So, and after castles, let's say after the move rook to c1, this is the standard move. You don't want to mess up this pawn structure. If black captures, then white wants to capture with the rook, keeping the pawn structure intact. So now there are two options that black has in this position, which is to play the move f5. This may look good that we are currently reinforcing this knight, but this leads to an early d5 move, and somehow this is not good for black. And after d5, let's say you can't take because you are giving up the center control, and white is more than okay to capture with the queen. If you take, then queen takes pawn, and this is already good for white. So taking is not an option. So the second option is to capture, and this is also good for white, because after the move knight to d8 and let's say the move c5, the advantage that black had in the opening is evaporated. It's no longer an option. So we don't want to take this pawn because of queen takes, and this is not a pleasant position to play. So that's why f5 is not immediately a good move in this position. The more immediate move is to play like a Bogo Indian, the d6. We are likely to play the move e5 at some point, but not immediately. And now if white plays the move d5, we could take, and then let me ask a question: where should this knight go? Is there a good square for this knight? Yes? Knight b8, yeah. Knight b8 is the only logical square, because this knight has a, let's say, a logical plan of d7 to c5. combined with the move a5. This is the most logical square for this knight. Okay, let's say after this move, pawn takes. Don't capture it with the bishop or with the queen. We would like to open up our rook file, so there is some kind of, let's say, attacking chances. And let's say after white castles, white castles, and the move knight d7, and after knight here, knight f6, let's say queen to d2 and e5, knight here, bishop e6. This is a standard line, bishop e6 and knight to e3. You see, white is currently holding up the d5 square with 3 pieces, and currently is threatening to put one of the pieces to the d5 square, let's say first with the knight. So we would like to grab that square with the move c6, and this is perfectly okay. Many of you might wonder that this pawn could become a permanently weakness, but it's not. And after the move c6, let's say rook to d3, rook to d8, rook f d1. You see, this is also known as the Alekhines guard, and putting a lot of pressure on the d6 square. And the only move, don't ever push this pawn forward, is to play the move knight e8. This move may look as passive as it looks, it's not. Let's say here queen to a5, we calmly play the move a6, and let's say after the move b3 and rook to d7, queen to d2, queen f6, and rook to f1. And this is quite good for black. Okay, let's go back. Now comes the fianchetto variation, which we will be looking. Okay, after bishop to d2, we just saw the move knight to c3. Okay, now comes the move g3. Yeah, this is known as the Catalan. This is also known as the Catalan because of the fianchetto variation. This bishop is quite good and quite strong in this diagonal. Okay, after the move g3, knight to c6, knight c6, and let's say after the move bishop here, and if black castles in this line and white castles and black plays the move d6. Now there is a tricky line that white has in this line, which is not so popular. Bishop to c1, declining this trade. And you see, this bishop is currently out of squares, and if let's say any random move, let's say bishop to d7, this bishop could get trapped with this move, bishop here, and then this bishop could get trapped. So that's why it's bishop to c1 is a trapping move, so you have to be careful. Whenever white tries to castle very quickly, you should trade in this position. Bishop takes bishop, knight takes bishop, black castles, white castles, and not castles, in this line. After knight takes, you play the move a5, white castles, or play the move e5, e4. This is also a good move, grabbing full central control. Okay, let's say after this move d6 and white castles. Remember, in this line you should play the move e5. Do not allow this move d5. If white manages to play the move, breaks through the center somehow, black is worse in this line. So the thing you have to do, remember in this line, memorize, is to play the move e5 immediately. Do not be afraid of the move d5 because of this knight b8, and we will find this route to c5, and this knight will be uncontested in this line. This is super strong, this knight. And let's say after the move b3, and it's better to develop the bishop first. then we don't have to worry about this move knight d7 to knight c5, and this position is quite favorable for them. Okay, now let's go back. After queen e7 and the move g3, there is one line which is also known as the fianchetto variation, the Queen's Indian kind of setup. After, let's say, bishop to g2 and bishop g7 and the move knight to c3. Now in this line, after the move knight to c3, you could just castle in this line, but the better version of this line is to castle immediately, and after, let's say, castles and the move d6 and queen to c2, this line, you see that white is currently controlling the e4 square twice. So we would like to remove one defender, takes, and put our knight on this e4 square, which is currently weak, and combined with the move f5. And this bishop has only one square. If white wants to preserve this bishop, then it could be worse because of the move f5, and black is the one in the driver's seat. Now let's go back to the starting position. After d4, knight f6 and c4, e6, no sorry, not knight c3, the bishop b4, and the move knight f3, bishop b4 check. And after the move bishop to d2, in the previous part we saw the Ninzovich variation. Now comes the weight semi-slow variation. This is also known as the weight semi-slow variation. Why? Because of the move a5. This is very popular in the top level, and it has been played many games, thousands of games. Let me mention the first move that comes to mind. Bishop takes bishop is not a good move because of this half open rook 5. Even if black manages to lose this pawn, it's a lot of compensation because of this half open rook 5. So it's not a good, taking is not a good option. Instead, white focuses on the move g3 and the move knight c3. These are the most top moves that has been played. So let's focus on the move first, knight to c3. White wants to avoid this bishop trade and puts the knight in between these two bishops. Well, our setup is very similar. We want to play this move b6 and fianchetto, this bishop to this diagonal. So after, let's say, e3 and bishop to b7, bishop d3, black castles, white castles, and the move, you should remember, d6, like a Bogo Indian type. d6 and let's say after the move a3, we take, and our similar structure, knight to e4. As this square is weak, our knight should occupy this square, and if, let's say, queen to c2, then f5. This kind of pawn structure is very important in this line. You should remember, we do not want to play the move d5, instead play the move d6. If in the future we could play the move knight to d7 and push e5. This is how we should play, like a Bogo Indian type. Okay, now after, let's say, after the move a5, white chooses to play the move g3 in this line, not knight to c3. Okay, then we should also continue with the move b6, bishop g6, fianchetto line, kind of Queen's Indian type setup. And after, let's say, white castles, black castling is fine. And after, let's say, a3 or the move knight to c3, we should want to grab this knight and destroy this defender on the e4 square and this similar structure, combined with the move f5. This is clearly better position. Now the most rare opening that white can face in this line. Sorry. Knight f3. Check. And after, let's say, going to e7. This is a very real line. In this line we should exchange. This is also known as exchange variation. And after take this d6. Do not commit your pawn to the d5 square immediately. Sorry. Because you have already given up the dark square bishop. It doesn't make sense to put your pawn on the light squares, because in that case your bishop will be kind of completely buried in this line. This is bad. So instead, as we have given up our dark square bishop, we would like to commit our pawns on the dark squares. So after the move d6 and let's say e4, we could just play the move e5 immediately. See, we have given our dark square bishop, and in return we would like to keep our pawns in the dark squares. And after e5, and if takes, then it's good for black. And if white pushes the pawn, then our same old strategy, knight to d7, or you could throw in the move bishop to g4 first. This is also a good move. And let's say bishop to e2. Remember, this bishop is, you could preserve this bishop by moving it to here, putting pressure on this pawn, or you could just trade this bishop and put our knight on the c5 square. Okay, after bishop to e2, let's say our common plan, knight to d7, white castles. Do not rush with castling immediately. Instead, like to grab some space on the queen side and then play the move knight to c5. And this is clearly better position for black. Okay, as this line goes, there is no end of these lines, so keep practicing these lines in your games and keep experimenting. Okay, and hopefully next video we will discuss some interesting traps on this Bogo Indian. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.